Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It is once again me, Zach, here today with another tier list for you guys and gals. In this episode, we're going to be covering a game that I don't believe I've made a tier list for, ever. Now, that might be incorrect, but I don't remember it if I did. So it's the first as far as I'm concerned today. The recent release of the Grounded 2 trailer and the general hype surrounding it has got me, well hyped. So we're going to be sticking to some Grounded content for a bit. I'm still going to be doing the Barony thing, don't worry. I see you, all 5 of my Barony fans out there. I love you guys. There will be Barony content coming out for you, but I got to do some Grounded because it's my special interest for the next 3 days. To that end, we are going to be starting off by doing some weapon tier list. We're going to be going tier by tier for the weapons. So today, for instance, is tier 1 weapons. I think that this is the most fair way to compare each tier, or each type of weapon, I should say. Because, you know, comparing, like, I don't know, a pebblet axe to, like, a hyper advanced super axe from the end of the game, you know, 3 new game pluses in, maybe is not the best, maybe is not the most fair comparison. The pebblet axe might be a little bit less good. So we're going to stick to comparing them to each other within the same tier. Starting with the 5 weapons that also double as tools. Each of these weapons is also a tool. They do double duty, dealing decent damage, as well as, of course, allowing you to collect resources and progress through the game in that way. Some of them are pretty decent as weapons, and some of them are not, but they are all also good utility. So keep that in mind. I'm not rating them based off of their utility, I am instead rating them based off of purely their combat capabilities. Starting with the Acorn Shovel. The Acorn Shovel has a base damage of 10, with no 3-hit combo whatsoever, as a note of interest, and with a stun chance of 15. It also has a slow swing speed. Now, this decent stun is pretty cool, mostly because it allows you to dig up grubs and stuff and stun them and then slowly beat them to death with your 10 damage per swing. But by and large, I would say that pretty comfortably, the shovel is almost always the worst weapon of its tier. I don't think that's super controversial. We'll see if maybe I'm wrong later on, but generally, yeah, Acorn Shovel, D tier. It's just not very good. Slow swing speed, low damage, your DPS is atrocious, and the stun obviously doesn't make up for it. There's also no way to boost the shovel damage in any way as far as I know. Like, there's no shoveler mutation that gives you like plus 200% shovel damage. You're just stuck with what you got. Moving on though to axes, there are in fact axe mutations, so this is a lot more promising. The pebblet axe specifically has a base damage of 20, and its 3-hit combo is 20, 20, 25. It only has a 5 stun chance, but meh. The DPS difference is vast between it and the shovel. It also has an average swing speed instead of a slow swing speed, which is always good. The repair cost of this weapon is only 1 pebblet, and of course the crafting cost is 3 sprig, 2 pebblet, 1 crude rope. Very cheap, it's an early game tool, not really surprising. All of the stuff used to make it is very easy to access, meaning, you know, you're going to have it pretty quickly. Axes are one of the more important tools in terms of utility. I will note that, but we aren't going to talk about it any further. I will just say that having a high quality axe is very helpful. But overall, I would actually leave the pebblet axe in B tier. I think that it is, I think it's pretty decent as far as a chopping tool. And early game, it does pretty decent damage. I didn't have any real complaints when I used it a few times. Axes in the late game feel decent, but not crazy good, I guess is what I would say about axes in general. And the reason I bring that up is because there is something to be said for, is it worth going for the pebblet axe to get a mutation that will benefit you when you have late game axes. And I would say generally, yeah, I think that they're generally pretty okay. Next up, of course, we have the Pebblet Hammer. The Pebblet Hammer, it has a 26, 26, 33 3-hit combo, meaning it's higher damage than the Pebblet Axe by a decent bit. However, the swing speed is slow on hammers. In addition to that, it has a scaling stun chance. The first swing is only 2, second swing is 8, final swing is 15. This is pretty decent. That puts its stun chance on par with the much worse shovel. But its overall DPS is astronomically higher, like many times higher than the shovel. The overall cost of it is roughly the same as like the Pebblet Axe. It's 3 sprig, 4 pebblets, 1 crude rope, and of course it requires a pebblet to repair it. Pretty cheap, duh. However, the Pebblet Hammer falls to C tier. As far as blunt weapons go, there is definitely a superior one in tier 1, which we'll get to later. And in addition to that, hammers just don't feel great to use. Maybe that's a personal thing, but I always found them a little bit too slow and a little bit too weak for what they give. The high stun chance isn't terrible early on, but personally I find them to underperform a little bit. Alright guys, so this is actually editing Zach here, taking over from past Zach for a little bit because he screwed up. Now, the larval blade is not actually a dagger. It is a sword, a stabbing implement. It is not, in fact, a dagger. This is my bad, and I think it's because the larva blade looks like the widow dagger and the spider dagger from later in the game. I just kind of lumped it in with them for whatever reason. It is not. And that does account for the fact that the larval blade is obviously much stronger than the pebblet dagger in terms of raw stats. I would still say that the placement I put the larval blade at is not too bad. I think that because it is a fast weapon with solid damage, it still deserves to be an A tier. But it does not have the same level of utility that I had maybe initially thought, based off of it being a dagger as well. I don't think I'm going to shift where the pebblet dagger is, however, because the pebblet dagger is still very easy to replace with the tier 2 weapon, well, with the tier 2 dagger, I should say. It is a weapon, but specifically with the tier 2 dagger. The damage on the pebblet dagger is low, which makes sense, it's a dagger, and it does not have any stun. That will be relevant when we get to the next tier list and talk about tier 2 weapons and the dagger therein. I went off on a bit of a tangent, complaining about why you would have one dagger be so much astronomically better than another dagger, and as it turns out, I was just wrong. Just outright wrong. So, oops, I guess. Overall, the larval blade still does suffer from the fact that it is a bit more expensive to craft than a lot of other tier 1 weapons, since most of them require stuff you literally pick up off the ground, and the larva blade does require you to at least kill some things. However, it is maybe a little bit less good than I said before, purely because I'm no longer comparing it strictly to the dagger. Anyway, that being said, that's all. I'm probably going to have to cut out some of my rant and whatnot. I'm not going to leave all of that inaccurate information in there for you guys to, well, first off, roast me about, but also just, I don't want to confuse anybody. So, there you go. That's all I got to say. Definite A tier for the larva blade, and C tier for the pebblet dagger. I think that is a pretty fair breakup of the two. I still don't think that the pebblet dagger is that great as a weapon. It's not awful, but it's not great in the same vein as the hammer, of course. Anyway, back to Past Zach. Next up is the Spiky Sprig, which we're going to put in B tier for all of 0.5 seconds before I toss into S tier. This is actually an S plus tier weapon. This is, I would argue, the best weapon in tier 1. For a couple reasons. One, its base damage. It is a two-handed weapon, to be clear about that before we go any further. Its base damage, or its base attack combo, is a 40-40-50, which is pretty solid. It has an 8 stun chance and slow swing speed. However, on top of really good damage for the early game, you may have noticed it does double what the Pebblet Axe was doing, and almost double what the Pebblet Hammer was doing. It also has a bleed debuff effect on it. In addition, many people know you can chuck it. You can throw most weapons, really, in the game, but specifically the Spiky Sprig, you can make a couple run up on a ladybug, for instance, and just spam throw them into her face and stun lock her. Spiky Sprigs in general are just a godsend to speedrunners, high-level players, newbies, anybody. Like, it's just really good. They're not even that difficult to craft, with their crafting recipe being 3 sprig, 5 thistle needles, and 2 crude rope. You can unlock their recipe by analyzing sprig or thistle needles, I should say. And the only repair cost issue that you'll have is that it's kind of expensive. It's 2 thistle needles and a sprig. That's not too bad. But it can be kind of annoying if you've got a whole bunch of people competing for the same resources. So keep that in mind, maybe. Overall, though, I would say, again, top tier, best weapon in the early game, best weapon in tier 1. Sorry. Best weapon in tier 1 by far. No complaints. Next up, Pebblet Spear. This is my go-to weapon of choice in the early game. I like it quite a bit. It's kind of a direct upgrade to the Pebblet Axe most of the time. The 3-hit combo that it has is 20-20-25. It has no stun, and it has fast attack speed. All of that put together means that you can absolutely wail on an enemy without any issues. You can capitalize on perfect blocks very easily. In addition, it does quite a bit of damage when thrown, which is kind of supposed to be its niche, really. It can be thrown and used underwater, which pretty decent, pretty good. But yeah, you can just craft a bunch of cheap Pebblet spears. They're 2 sprigs, 3 plant fiber, and 1 pebblet, making them one of the cheapest recipes in the game. They don't even require rope or anything, the way that most other weapons do. And they only require 1 pebblet to repair, if you even bother repairing them instead of just making new ones. The sheer spammable nature of them, the fast attack speed, the cheapness, all put together, plus being able to be used underwater, makes them, in my opinion, really solid. I'm going to put them in A tier. I'm actually going to put them above the Larva Blade. And I want to clarify that before we go forward. I do think the Larva Blade is a better weapon in general. But the problem is that the Pebblet Spear is something you're going to be using from, like, minute 1 of the game, literally. You walk out of the starting area, you pick up, like, 3 things, you probably can make a Pebblet Spear. For that reason, and you can make, like, 20 of them, to be clear. For that reason, you use it for longer, it's a bit more consistent. Yeah, I just generally think that the spear is one of the most flexible weapons available. It's consistently very good. And while the Larva Blade does outshine it, the Larva Blade is also kind of at the end of tier 1, comparatively. As opposed to, like, these two. Both the Pebblet Spear and the Spiky Sprig are pretty cheap and easy to get. You don't have to kill anything too tough. You can literally harvest all the resources. You don't have to kill anything, technically. Just makes it makes them very nice and easy to get. Whereas this, a little bit trickier. Not too bad, but a little bit trickier. Next up, we have something that qualifies as a weapon in kind of like the most technical of terms, I guess. And that is the bomb. The Bratburst. Now, of course, I will note, the Bratburst it has some important uses in the story and in progression in general. In addition to that, while it is a tier 1 explosive, it's pretty expensive by early game standards, requiring fungal growth, ant eggs, and dry grass chunks. That, of course, is the easy part. Um, but you also have to um, unlock it by analyzing fungal growth or red ant egg, and again, none of that is necessarily super difficult, but we are talking about this being something that you get a little bit later into the game compared to any of these other weapons. Like, the Bratburst is in the same kind of category as the Larval Blade, I think, where it's sort of towards the end of Tier 1 weaponry, and it's not even really meant to be a weapon in the strictest sense. It does deal 300 damage. It's not terrible on that front, but I'm going to personally leave it in B tier because, I don't know, if to me it seems like it would be a little bit expensive to use this against like normal enemies, and it also seems a little bit tricky to use, I think. It just doesn't feel intended to be used as a weapon, but the sheer damage, it's got to go in B tier. I don't think I can put it any lower than that. Finally, we reach our last category, which isn't exactly easy to talk about, and I'll explain why in a moment. First off, the Sprig Bow. Now, the Sprig Bow is pretty straightforward. Like any other bow, the damage that it deals varies based off of how far you pull it back and all that. It has average firing rate, no stun chance, pretty straightforward. It's pretty cheap. It's 3 Sprig, 2 Crude Rope, and 4 Gnat Fuzz. Gnats can be kind of annoying, but with a few spear throws, or sometimes they just wander into you, and you can just melee them. It's pretty easy. You can get enough of them to make this. And then to repair, it requires 2 Crude Rope. That is admittedly a little bit more expensive than a lot of the other tools and weapons, but not too bad. Sprig Bow is, in my opinion, kind of mid. I'm going to personally put it at the top of B tier, but it doesn't go any higher. I think that generally speaking, because of how cheap and easy it is to just spam out spears or even chuck clubs at people, a ranged weapon doesn't have a super useful niche in the early game. There are some things it's good for, and it is worth using. I do think that anything that's like, really anything C and above is decent as a weapon. It's just increasing levels of goodness. But the Sprig Bow, for sure, I've only bothered to build it for my friends because they specifically asked for a bow-type weapon, right? Generally speaking, I myself stick to throwing spears when necessary to engage in aerial combat. Now, the reason why this section is a little bit complicated, though, is because we now have to talk about all the Tier 1 ammunition. Now, the reason this is complicated is because a lot of this ammunition is kinda technically Tier 1, but ain't Tier 1, really, in terms of, like, when you can get access to certain elements of it. I would say that it would be kind of arranged like this, in terms of ease of access, if I had to, if I had to guess. We start with the basic arrow. This is actually a Tier 1 weapon. The damage is 5, of course. It's nothing too crazy. It's pretty bad. It requires 2 Might Fuzz and 5 Thistle Needles, and how many do you get for that? Is it like 10 or something? It's not. That's not for one arrow, to be super clear here. But either way, I'm gonna put this in C tier. I think it's pretty bad. You only use that because it's easy to spam them with no special effects or anything. In the Sprig Bow, especially, they're just pretty bad. Next up is the Lure Arrow. I don't know. This one feels like somebody can come up with some kind of absolutely insane, like, cracked out of their mind use for it, but personally, I don't see it. I'm putting it in D tier. It's also 5 damage. I think all the Tier 1 arrows are 5 damage, actually, just to save myself some time. and it's crafted with 5 normal arrows and 5 flower petals. You can get flower petals without being in too much danger. That's why I put it as number 2. It's not really too big of a deal. Oh, wait, hold up. Like that. There we go. The next arrow is the gas arrow. It requires a stink bug gas sack with 5 arrows to craft, and it of course applies the gas hazard effect. I would actually leave this one, I think, in B tier. It's nothing insane, but I do think it is pretty decent. I don't think it's awful. Let me put it like that. Next we have the pollen arrow. Pollen arrow is, what is the exact stat on this? It gives your arrows the flyer stun effect, which is pretty useful. I mean, ooh, okay, computer, relax now. Don't do that. Don't scream at me, you son of a bitch. Sorry about that. The flyer stun effect is not useless, but in my opinion, you don't really need it. You know, like, it's not something that is consistently necessary to have. There aren't a ton of flying enemies. Most of them are pretty weak, and in order to craft this, you do actually have to get pollen, which means you have to kill bees, which means you have to kill flying foes to kill flying foes. If it's something you're going to be doing a lot, or you just have a lot of pollen because, I don't know, your life, maybe that's just a thing you do with it, it's not worthless by any means. It's definitely fine, but it's, I don't know what the exact status effect is, though, is the problem. Alright, so it would appear that pollen arrows add like a 50 stun chance, which is pretty decent, as well as slowing the target. I think, though, that they're pretty bad, frankly. Pollen is not like super expensive or anything, but especially for newer players, I do kind of feel like it might be a little bit tricky to get, or at least intimidating to get. And the trade-off, or like the payoff, I should say, is just not great. I just don't think it's really worth it. Overall, it's technically more powerful than normal arrows, but more expensive as well, so I put it below. That's my take on it. Finally, we've got the venom arrow. The venom arrow requires spider venom. The spider venom is, this is the weird thing, this only drops from wolf spiders. Most people are not going to be taking on wolf spiders until they are past tier 1. Wolf spiders are tier 2 enemies, and the spider venom that you need to craft these arrows, which is 1 plus 5 arrows, by the way, is also a tier 2 material. So that is a little bit odd to me that they would be a tier 1 arrow. That being said, 5 base damage plus the poison effect, it's not too bad. And I don't know, the cost of them doesn't feel exactly worth it, but the poison effect doesn't feel too awful. I think, personally, I would leave them in B tier. Maybe A tier? Hovering between these two. I think I'm going to leave it here, though. I think I'm going to leave gas arrows a little bit higher than venom arrows, pretty much strictly because gas arrows are, admittedly, a little bit easier to get, generally. Stink bugs are annoying, but a gas mask and a club will deal with them pretty handily, whereas fighting a fucking wolf spider with tier 1 equipment, pretty scary, at least for newer players. But there you go, that is the tier 1 weapons complete. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and got something out of it. I will be doing tier 2 weapons next, unless I decide to do tier 1 armor. I am a wild card, an enigma. You can never understand me. You can never see where I'm going. I will always surprise you. But until next time, like I said, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Tune in next time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good shit. And peace.